Hi, Leary.
Hi, Mandy.
This is my friend Leary, who used to live in a farm just opposite the Commune, and I'm hoping he's going to tell us about that and about the commoners' rights that were attached to it. So, Leary, can you tell us about your farm where you used to live?
Well, it was called Bindon Home Farm. It was part of an estate belonging to Bindon House in Victorian times. My father bought Bindon House in 1962 when he retired from his practice. He was a doctor.
Okay.
He had a private practice in Harley Street, and we were still at school, at boarding school, so we used to come home during the holidays and muck around in the garden. And then in the mid-60s, the farm that was next door, it was about 30 acres, came up for sale. The owners had basically gone bankrupt. They had intensive battery chickens and cattle and pigs and all sorts of stuff. And my father ended up buying it because it was next to the house. And
So your father owned Bindon House, which is now turned into some kind of health place, isn't it?
yeah, it's a health retreat now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the Bindon Home Farm, was it, next door?
My father changed the name from the Larches to Bindon Home Farm,
Oh, right.
in a sort of idea to encapsulate the old sort of idea of the Bindon estate.
Yes. Yeah.
There was a Bindon Lodge at the bottom of the drive, a Bindon Bungalow, and there was a Bindon Farm, which was a separate.
Is that where Thomas Prescott
Thomas
was?
Prescott owned Bindon Farm at the end of the lane.
Okay, yeah. So tell us about, did you, when you were growing up there, did you come to the Commune? Did you know the Commune? Which was just across from where you lived, basically.
Well, when basically my brother and I dropped out of education when we finished A-levels, and rather than go to university, we formed a prog rock band.
As you do.
And made used to make a racket at Bindon House. Because my father owned the farm, the land was rented out to a local farmer, but the farmhouse was empty. He said, well, just you lot go off and make the noise up at the farm and leave me and your mother in peace. And so it was actually amazing because, you know, we had complete autonomy of the whole farmhouse and a huge great barn loft where we could rehearse.
Fantastic.
It was like a all hours rehearsal room. And we did, you know, we were there for about from 68 till about 71, you know, organising, rehearsing and living there as a prog rock band.
Hippie,
And we used to
hippie commune.
Well, it was a musician's commune, really.
Right.
And yeah, we used to come over to the Commune, but it was a nice place just to sort of chill out on a nice summer's afternoon.
Yeah.
Later on, when I got fed up with the music, and my father wanted someone to manage the farm, he offered me a tenancy to look after the farm, and I thought, well, I'm fed up with prog rock and the whole music industry, which was full of big egos and lots of travelling and late nights and always being poor and hungry and cold in the winter. And so I had this idea of, you know, this kind of romantic idea of living off the land, and sort of it seemed like a very honest and dignified way of life. It was a bit of escape. And you know, it was also during the time of the Cold War, and we'd gone through the Cuban Missile Crisis, and everybody was talking about nuclear annihilation. And I thought this is a good sort of lifestyle, and we started off as a bit of a hippie self-sufficient commune in the early days. And I heard about grazing rights from our neighbour Tom Prescott, who he also had grazing rights, and it was in the grazing rights are in the deeds, not in the person. So I inherited, or my father inherited the grazing rights.
So by that you mean the rights to graze animals on the common was attached to the farm,
Attached
to the
to
land.
the property, yeah.
Yeah. Were those rights attached to Bindon House or Bindon Home Farm, or
Bindon
both?
Home Farm,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or what used to be the Larches.
Yeah.
And it was specifically for horses, sheep, cattle, and for picking up fallen timber, but not for cutting down trees.
But did you ever use those rights?
Commoners really needed commoners' rights, you know, when they were all living off the land. And they had, you know, big families, so they could send someone down to watch the animals.
Yes. And I think they probably did it communally, didn't they? They might have one person in the village who would come up and look after all the animals for the village.
Yeah, that's right.
I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a problem now.
But, you know, for me, I know my neighbour, Tom Prescott, was very sort of, he wanted to keep all his, he had rights because he was a bigger farm. But for me, you know, I mean, we had plenty of wood at the farm. It was when all the elm trees were dying, and we had loads of timber for our fireplace. And I actually didn't feel it was of any use to what we were doing. And the next thing I know, the Somerset Wildlife Trust, is it, or was it? It was.
Yeah, it's a wildlife trust. Yeah.
Yeah. They took over management of it, and I actually supported very much what they were doing, because, you know, you could see the effect of climate change, you could see the effect of intensive farming, and I thought it was more important that this place be managed for wildlife conservation. And, you know, and from that point of view, I was quite happy to let my grazing rights go.
Yeah, fair enough. But the woman who owns the ponies is not actually a commoner,
No.
but she has an agreement with them.
Because they want to keep the long grass down for the butterfly conservation, because it all this tall grass, it competes with the wetland species that the marsh fritillary butterflies need for their life cycle, for the caterpillars to survive on.
Exactly so.
So that is like wildlife management, isn't it?
Exactly.
To have the ponies on.
Yes.
Yeah.
But what the commoners used to do by grazing up here is they've in effect created this habitat, and they managed it by grazing their animals. They weren't deliberately doing it for habitat management, but that was the effect.
But see, in those days, if like a sort of a small farmer had a dozen, 15 sheep, you know, and they relied on those sheep for their own food, and to do a bit of trading, bartering with other farmers, just for survival.
Yeah.
But like that way of life is mostly gone now, hasn't it? Because you've got to have hundreds of sheep to make any money out of it. And they've all got to be ear tagged, they've got to be checked by vets.
Sure, yeah.
You know, the market might be miles and miles away. The whole agricultural scene has changed so much.
It has.
From those days when commoners, when it was useful for commoners to have. I mean, I can't see a situation where anybody would want to exercise them.
No.
Unless, of course, you know, we go into a sort of apocalyptic situation where, you know, society breaks down, and then it will be a massively useful resource.
Exactly.